You ever have one of those mornings where you think nothing in the world could possibly go wrong? And then, out of nowhere, your life turns into a sitcom written by someone with a seriously twisted sense of humor? That was me, standing in my kitchen, waiting for my coffee to brew, when a shrill scream cut through the peace like a chainsaw. I stepped out onto my porch, and there she was, some woman I'd never seen before, standing right on my front steps, waving a clipboard like she was Wyatt Earp, and behind her this tiny, angry chihuahua that looked ready to bite my ankles off. She didn't even bother with hello. "Sir, I'm Darlene Pratt, president of the Pine Ridge Estates Homeowners Association," she announced, flashing some cheap-looking badge that honestly looked like it came out of a kid's detective kit. She informed me, loud enough for the squirrels to hear, that my cabin on my own family land was a blight on the community, driving down property values by exactly 12%, and I had 72 hours to start tearing it down. You know what I mean? She actually tried to make me feel like the trespasser. For a second, I just stared, more at the little dog snarling at my boots than at Darlene, who was busy jabbing her finger at the porch like I'd personally insulted her ancestors. The absurdity of it all kind of washed over me. This land had been in my family for generations. My grandfather's cabin, since the 70s, me sanctuary from everything that's wrong with the modern world. And now, this self-appointed sheriff was treating me like a criminal for daring to exist on my own property. I tried the reasonable approach first. "Ma'am, this is private land outside the HOA. You've got no jurisdiction here." But Darlene wasn't hearing it. She started waving her arms, declaring her community's standards overrode all that. Next thing I know, she's got her phone out, live streaming to the 3 people who actually follow her. She called my place a dangerous eyesore and marched straight to my gate, digging a red spray paint can from her bag and painting a giant X like she was marking me for demolition on national TV. Right then, something shifted in me. I could have called the sheriff. Part of me wanted to, but I was honestly curious how far she'd go. So I started filming too, announcing, for the record, that she was trespassing and vandalizing private property. For just a heartbeat, she faltered. Then the fake authority came roaring back. She started ranting about legal teams, county building departments, the works. But before she left, she picked up her phone again and, right in front of me, called the police to report illegal construction and community harassment. Yeah, that happened. Here's where things got crazy. Not 20 minutes later, police cars came winding up the road. But the real story was waiting down the mountain at my neighbor Ellie's place. Ellie's a sweet old lady, lost her husband a year ago, lived here longer than most trees. When I visited her that afternoon, she was in tears. Her backyard gardenia, riot of color for 20 years, was nothing but bare dirt. Darlene, it turned out, had forced her to rip everything out for violating community standards, backed by a stack of obviously fake complaints, all with the same over-the-top phrasing, supposedly from different residents. With some quick help from my friend, Jenny Woe's got a real knack for sniffing out digital lease. We traced every single email to Darlene's own IP address. Turns out, this HOA president had built her little empire on fraud, intimidation, and straight-up bullying the most vulnerable people in our community. I wasn't the first target, just the first to push back. Word started spreading. Tom Bradley, another neighbor, called me in a panic, said Darlene was rallying her loyalists for an emergency HOA meeting about my dangerous structure. But the truth was, most folks were just scared to find the Johnsons over a mailbox color, threatened the Garcias for parking their work truck at home, and now she was gunning for me, thinking I was just some nobody with a cabin. Only, here's the twist Darlene never saw coming. My family didn't just own this cabin, we own the entire valley. Every inch of Pine Ridge Estates, from the community center to Darlene's own home, was built on land my grandfather quietly accumulated, placed in a trust, and managed through a company with my name nowhere in the paperwork. The HOA? They'd been paying rent to my family, and Darlene had no real power at all. But I held that card close. The next morning, Darlene rolled up with the sheriff, her witnesses in tow residents she'd strong-armed into backing her up, all looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. The sheriff, a good man named Ron Bell, took one look at my stack of original Permits County approvals everything in order from the 70s, and you could almost see the relief on his face. Darlene, on the other hand, lost it accused me of forging documents, bribing officials, the whole 9 yards. Sheriff Bell, patient but clearly tired of her act, warned her about filing false reports. Darlene stormed off, shouting about lawyers, her little dog yapping in her wake. After that circus, I knew it was time to go on the offensive. With Jenny's help, we compiled a case proof of fraud, embezzlement, illegal surveillance, all of it. The final straw? Darlene hired a private investigator to stalk me, dug through my trash, doctored photos to make it look like I was running an illegal business, and posted them online. She wasn't just unhinged, she was dangerous. So when the emergency HOA meeting finally happened, I walked in with my grandfather's briefcase, packed with deeds, leases, and every bit of history that proved my family's claim. Darlene ranted for 20 minutes about my supposed crimes, her witnesses echoing her lines, while the crowd shifted uncomfortably. When it was my turn, I laid the truth bare. Not only was my cabin legal, but every single home in Pine Ridge Estate stood on my land. Darlene wasn't the queen, she was just another tenant, and all her fines, threats, and power plays were built on air. The reaction was instant. Neighbors stood angry, relieved, finally understanding how deep the lies went. I banned Darlene from my property. The sheriff served her with charges for fraud and harassment. Within a week, the community voted her out, filed a civil suit, and as her house went up for sale, kids chalked "No More Karen" on the sidewalk outside the community center. Months later, Ellie's garden was back, blooming brighter than ever. The community was alive again, block parties, laughter, people talking in their front yards. The storm finally passed. I kept my grandfather's legacy intact, protected the peace he wanted for this valley, and watched a group of good people finally shake off the shadow of one woman's petty tyranny. But the truth? There's always someone out there ready to twist a little power into something ugly. Maybe that's why these stories hit so hard, because we all know a Darlene somewhere. So tell me, was I right to fight back the way I did? Or is there something about community power we all ought to be more careful with? Drop your thoughts below. I'd love to hear what justice looks like in your world.